Okay. Hello, people. My name is Mohini Dey, and you're watching my brand new talk show, What a Melophile Wants. Now, I believe music touches us emotionally where words alone can't. It is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy. It produces a kind of pleasure which human nature can't do without. It expresses that which cannot be said and on which it is impossible to be silent. Today, I have an extremely special guest on my show who has surpassed every boundary with his special gifts. He's an American bass player and vocalist. He's considered one of the most recorded bass players in the history of music. He's a founding member of contemporary jazz quartet Foreplay and has worked with renowned artists such as Bobby Womack, Eric Clapton, Michael Jackson, Joe Satriani, Stevie Wonder, Toto, Daft Punk, Herbie Hancock, and so many more. It's a very overwhelming moment for me, you guys. Please welcome the incredible Nathan East.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Firstly, I want to say thank you so much for coming on my show. It is such an honor to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me, and it's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just trying to keep sane
Yeah,
through these times because, it's been going on and on forever. It's been too long,
you
just
know,
been quarantined.
none of us could have knew that when 2020 started, that we'd be finishing up some of our last gigs, and it was
I know. That's why it was very important for me to include this applause because I know we're all missing that.
yeah, yeah. It's well, it gives us a test to see what kind of how we deal with Plan B, and
Right. Totally. Totally.
I
Totally.
know we were together at Java Jazz last year, and
I know
that's
I was trying to remember where we met. I couldn't remember now that you say it rings a bell. Yes, Java Jazz.
yes, and so I know they just had their festival, and like maybe March 1st, and then March 2nd they shut down the country. So it's a
Yeah, crazy,
yeah,
crazy.
really
But
crazy.
well, I got to see your performance. Thank
Yeah, well, it was lovely to meet you, and congratulations on everything.
you.
Whenever I
Thank
need
you so much.
whenever I need inspiration, I just go on YouTube and watch you, and then I
Oh
realize
my God.
practicing I need
No.
to do. It-
It is my pleasure and my honor to have you and to be talking to you. You're one of my biggest inspirations and biggest idol that I've grown up listening to and watching, you know?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm a big fan of your work, and
Thank
you're an
you.
amazing player, and I want to maybe try to get some lessons from you one of these days.
What? No, I need some lessons from you.
So,
Okay. So my first question to you is based on what I said earlier. Music means so many things to so many different people. For me, music is an outburst of my soul. It is an outburst of my emotions. I try to be as lyrical as possible. I want to build a story through music. What is music to you, and how do you think it makes an impact on our lives where it has the power to evoke our highest aspirations? How does that happen?
music is it's a very spiritual um, endeavor, and especially because like it touches people, but it's invisible. So like it's like you're getting touched through your skin, through your ears, through all the pores in your skin. So I think for everybody it means a little something different. But I've found that when I travel throughout the world, it's
Mhm.
just something that brings us all together and puts us in a common space, and it feels like a common language to me. That whether
Right.
I'm in Japan or Brazil or wherever, Italy, and they don't have to speak the language that I speak, and I don't have to speak the language that they speak, but the
Yeah.
music seems to bring us all together, in harmony.
Totally, totally. And everybody's journey is so different, but we still, when we play music, we still meet at the same point. Isn't that so beautiful?
That's incredible, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's Java Jazz is a good uh, example of that, and I always see that's where we always hang out. You see so many people over there, and all the
How many
uh,
times have you performed at Java Jazz?
oh, it's been so many years I've lost count, and
That
it's
was my first time actually when I met you. That was my first time.
oh
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Every musician was standing in line wanting to see you. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, I
I
had lots of fun
line.
playing there. Oh, I'm curious because we've never really hung out together and we've never really spoken to each other like this. I want to know, how did you happen to pick up bass out of all instruments? What was your journey?
Yeah, another fun story. I was in a church where my brother David played guitar, my brother Ray sang, and
Ah,
they were there rehearsing, and I was tagging along with them. I was 14 years old, and there was a bass on the altar, and I'll never forget. It was just sitting on a stand. Nobody was playing it, and I asked whose this was. Nobody said anything, so I picked it up, and as soon as I held it and started playing it, there was just something magical that took place where I felt like, wait a second, I know this, you know. And
right.
they invited me to be in the band with them. And I always say the best thing about playing in the church band is if you make a mistake, you're forgiven. So
Yeah, so that's how you started playing bass.
yes, so it
Wow.
and literally like I had a gig with them like the next day, and we played together, and then started being in bands around around town, playing clubs, and kind of top 40 gigs and everything, and then
Right.
just went from there.
So you just started self-teaching yourself, and like, who were your major influences? Because as a kid growing up, I'm sure you looked up to somebody just like how I looked up to you and many
Oh
other musicians.
well, I
Who were
mean,
your major influences?
yeah, we all stand on shoulders, I mean, of course, James Jamerson, all the Motown records were,
Right.
that's my ear just went to the bass, and
Hmm.
and I remember I saw Earth, Wind and Fire. So Verdine White was he pulled
Yeah,
off, it was playing. So he
yeah.
was like he played a white bass, so I wanted a white bass, and
Oh, that's how you ended up having a white bass.
yeah, but then I used to stand there and watch the Beatles, of course, McCartney, and then um, on the jazz side, I used to listen to Ron Carter a lot and Ray Brown,
Right.
Charlie Mingus, but so many different guys. Rocco and Tower of Power was just
Right.
pumping the bass. So these were the
Yeah.
guys and Scott LaFaro and I was all over the place listening to people. Jack
Right,
Bruce.
right, right. And you have a very unique sound, like your tone is so different. Did that also come from listening to all these people
Well,
growing up?
I always was working my first couple of basses. I was pulling pickups, drilling so many holes in the bass, changing pickups, just
Yeah,
always looking for a sound, and so I
yeah.
I mean, to this day, I still, fool around with pickups and just trying to get the most uh, punchy, clear, but warm. And so it's like a constant endeavor to try to just keep this.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, even my father keeps doing that, keeps taking out pickups and putting new pickups, and then he'll do something and something. And I'm like, what are you doing?
My poor first bass, I used to have just holes. I'd have to put wood over the hole, and it was
Oh, yeah.
but that's experimentation, and I'm finally it's nice to kind of have arrived to a sound where Yamaha. I've
Right,
been working with them for many years, so we have my
right,
signature bass. That's
right, right. I love that bass. It sounds incredible.
oh, thank you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. It's
a good starting point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when you started playing the bass, did you ever think of doing anything else, or was it just bass? Like you never even thought about it, or did you think of doing
I
something
didn't
else?
really think about it for the past 40 years or so now. I haven't had time to think about anything else. I just I
You
just
just kept playing,
kind of
yeah.
jumped into that. I couldn't believe that the band that I was playing in, a local band, we were backing up a bunch of artists for Stax record review, and one of the artists was Barry White. And when he heard our band, he hired our entire band on the spot to go on tour with him.
Oh
So
wow.
so I'm a little young
Incredible.
16-year-old bass player touring the country with Barry White, and it was amazing.
That's amazing. So that was like the biggest thing that happened to you in your life? Was that like one of the first biggest things?
Yeah, that was like one of the very first big kind of gigs. We're playing in arenas, and
Right.
we played the Apollo Theater and the Kennedy Center in Washington D.C. So we,
Right.
like I just got a real good feeling about about that kind of you're thrown on a stage in a packed arena at such a
Right.
young age. I felt like, you know what, this is it. Never
That's
thought
amazing.
never thought about
That's
it
great.
again.
Right. Now, in my earlier episodes, I've spoken about evolvement, development, and transformative individuality. But everyone's journey is so different, like I said earlier. So I want to know, how did you evolve as a person? And was it the same growing up to be a musician? Or were there two different paths that you had to go through as a kid to find this one route, which made you have this marriage between your music and you as a person?
Great question, and I, to this day, I feel it's such a blessing to be able to discover a path and something that I loved so
Mm,
much at such an early age, because I didn't really ever have to do anything else. I had jobs as a youngster, and when I was in high school, I was looking at opportunity programs where I was trying to figure out, you know, what do I want to do? I had a job working in a men's clothing store early on.
wow, really?
Yeah. And
Amazing.
yeah, and so, but I always, once the music bug hit, that was kind of it, and
Mm,
so I did try to get an education. I got a degree in music at
mm,
University of California, San Diego, and then that kind of prepared me, for reading and just different types of music. And
right.
I started a master's program there, and one of my instructors, Bert Turetsky, said, "Go to LA and make some money. Come on, make us proud." So I did that, and when I hit LA, I was fortunate enough to meet some really good people like Gene Page, great arranger who was arranging for Barry White
Right.
and many people, Michael Jackson and Madonna and Elton John. So he was the guy. If he liked you, then you were working every day.
Mm.
So I
So,
was fortunate to meet him, and then it's kind of a snowball effect into meeting a lot of different people.
right. So you were, we can say that you as a musician and as a person in your personal life are pretty much the same.
Pretty much. I mean, I and it's funny how the two, they're different, but then they come together. So
Yeah, because sometimes what happens, like you'll meet a person on stage and they're like, oh, shebang, and then after you meet them off stage, they're like, oh, hi, how are you? I'm like, whoa, what just happened?
I know
Were you a different person on stage, and then, you know?
multiple personalities. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
and then vice versa. Sometimes it's the opposite. Yeah.
right. And but and as you know, the bass is like all bass players are just cool. Like they're
Yeah, yeah.
pretty laid back and cool, and so I think the nature of the instrument is just cool. Even on stage, you're not trying.
Right.
You just
And I
kind
think I think most of it only comes because of the person you are, actually. If you don't
of.
have that in you, then there's no swag, I guess.
And that might be why people are drawn to the bass, because
Yeah,
the nature of the instruments, it's very supportive,
right.
especially that's what I used to try to get the balance between, being being a supportive, playing a
Right,
supportive role in the.
right. Yeah, you've got a great pocket. You've got a deep pocket. Like I've always so much digged it. I've digged it a lot, and I get a lot of questions asked on this topic. Where how do I develop a great solid time feel? So I'm gonna ask you that. It's for my listeners. I'm sure they want to know how do I develop a good solid time feel?
Yeah, well, one of the best things, and one of the other things I'm most grateful for, is I've had the opportunity to play with some of the best drummers uh,
Right,
ever. Jeff Porcaro, and I'm in a band with Harvey Mason, and then John Robinson, and
right.
lots of guys, Vinny and Ricky Lawson, lots of the guys that have really just been anchors in terms of groove. So
Groove. Yeah.
when you come in and play with these guys, you got to bring it. you know,
Yeah, totally.
Steve Ferroni, just
Yeah. So it
like
just naturally happens when you start playing with like good drummers, good musicians who have good time feel and good
Yeah,
pockets, I guess.
yeah, it forces you to, and of course, after listening to years and years of guys like Jamerson and
Right.
and Rocco and Jocko, and people that have just amazing feel, that's kind of the target goal for it.
Totally.
And a lot of times you just want to make that one note. It's not necessarily about a lot of notes, but I want to make that one note, that one
Right.
downbeat lock, with the drummer, and that's the thing I enjoy doing.
Yeah, me too. I love that. I'm always listening
Well,
to the kick. Yeah. Give me the deep end. I want to feel more. Like I can live inside the cake, you
yeah,
know?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we're married to drummers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So cool. So true. Now, in my earlier episodes, we've spoken about leadership, companionship, and so many other elements. I want to know, I'm curious to know, have you ever had any challenges that you went through as a kid growing up? Did you face any challenges as a musician growing up? What was your biggest challenge that, I don't
Yeah,
know, because
yeah,
everybody has their own,
right.
battles.
Well, that's an interesting question because I think individually we all have our own little uphill battles that we have to conquer. And
Yeah.
you know, one of the first things that I noticed is in the local scene that it was very cliquish. So
Mm,
all the guys that were getting all the gigs were like
right.
in a club, and so I was trying to figure out how do you break into that club. And I'll never forget auditioning, and I hate auditions because it's just like the worst. And
Feel it.
I failed miserably at most auditions. That's why I think I hate
Really?
it. But I can remember auditioning for one gig that was like one of the most popular gigs in town, and I got it. And that really kind of changed my life because it always felt like, I don't think I can ever break through on this audition.
Ah,
And
right.
when the band leader, and bless his soul, he just passed away recently. His name is John Oz. And when he called me and said, "I'd love to have you in the band," I just was so. It was a big breakthrough, and
Right.
it's funny. After I left that band, Jason Sheff, who played with Chicago, took my place playing bass in the band, and so it was one of those kind of bands everybody wanted to be in.
Right, right, right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's always kind of something that
Right.
I think the thing to overcome it is just if you come in there with an attitude of excellence, and all your gear is in shape,
Mhm.
on time, and you're trying to do everything right, you may get lucky.
Little luck and hard work.
A little, yeah,
A
yeah.
little. Yeah. Now you're such a busy musician when you're touring, when you're traveling. I'm sure you're most of the time on road traveling, right? How do you learn and practice new things when you're busy traveling on tours? And now that you have all this time to yourself, how is your routine like?
Well, and another great question. I think the two the two most challenging gigs that I've had. Well, there's been a couple, like Wayne Shorter. I did an album with him called
Yeah.
Joyride, and
Mm,
it was just I had to take the music home and just get it under my chops, you know.
right.
And but then Herbie Hancock's gig, when he called,
Mm,
I had to go back into the woodshed. And then recently, and the first gig we did together was at Java Jazz. It was with Chick Corea called me to sub
right.
Patitucci in the electric bands. So
Right.
that was really, I was on the plane for 8 hours with my silent bass, practicing, got a match, and all these songs that have these
Yeah. Yeah.
busting bass lines.
Right.
And so, and again, he was just in the hotel all day long in the hotel room,
Right. Right.
and
Are you someone who likes to like practice on the day of the show from morning till until like an hour before the show, and
well,
then
especially if the music is that kind of challenge.
is
Normally,
challenging? Yeah.
normally. if it's not that challenging where it really requires you
Mm,
know, the
mm,
chops and the accurate,
right.
focus,
Yeah.
then I like to explore whatever town I'm in, because that's another thing I enjoy about traveling is
Right.
seeing the world. I have a little
True.
folding Brompton bicycle that I take with me, and I
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, and
That's
so
pretty.
yeah,
That's nice.
that because it's fun to see, see things that you wouldn't necessarily see.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. How much of your playing in your gigs, especially solos, is completely improvised over chops and patterns that you've, say, worked out before? And if it's both, then how do you keep that balance?
Yeah, I don't like to play what I worked on necessarily, because once you get the
Hmm.
band, then it's
Yeah,
a
because some people do. Some people play like exactly what they've planned. Some
yeah.
people are like spontaneous. Like I don't like to plan anything. I just
No.
let it go. Some nights are good. Some nights are okay. You
Yeah.
know.
And for me, that's how you discover a new place to go. If you're just going to practice something, then play that every night and force that into the conversation. Uh,
Right.
to me, that's not really making music. So I like the idea of creating, trying to create something new every time you get on.
Right. A different story that
Yeah,
you've
exactly.
probably just experienced.
And because then if the other musicians are doing the same thing, then everything can grow. And I feel
Right.
fortunate to be in a band like Foreplay, where we've been together for like 30 years now. So you come
Oh, my
come to
favorite.
oh, thank you. Well, those are some of my favorite musicians too, Bob James and
Credit goes to my dad. He introduced me to foreplay.
well, we've played Java Jazz many times as well. It's
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
fun, and it's it's nice to play with musicians that are on the same wavelength of creating, and not just
And an
going,
understanding.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think, and especially as bass players, because everybody has their lick or their chop thing that you
That
want to.
just subconsciously it will come in anyways.
It does come in. I do like a lot of times when I talk to bass players, I try to impress upon the fact that this is a dialogue that's going. So you're reacting to what you're hearing, and a lot of times, if the guitar player or the keyboard might play something that I want to jump on and see, and it sparks an idea in my head. So
Right. Just
uh,
complimenting each other, yeah.
yeah, so you have a circular conversation, not just,
Right.
hey, I practiced this in my room and I played this.
Yeah. Yeah, or I can play that in 200 BPM.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and it depends on the music as well.
Yeah, and also the bands actually, also different cultures sometimes. Like if you're playing in a Japanese band, then they're very, very scripted. They like it exact, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And then if you're in LA, you're a recording artist, then it's kind of like, you have to have the understanding of every genre, right?
Yeah, well, and when Vinny and I got called to play with Herbie Hancock, he would go out, and first of all, he didn't rehearse like crazy. He did because he wanted spontaneity, and then
Yeah.
he'd go out and say, "Hey, if you do something that works one night, then the next night try something else." So he
Yeah.
was encouraging us to just don't do what you did last night. Just go and
Right,
find a
right.
new adventure,
Yeah.
and a
Mm-hmm.
place to go, which is why he's so amazing, because uh,
Yeah, he's incredible.
he just digs deeper and deeper, and I think it's fantastic to
Yeah, I've never had the opportunity to play with Vinny, but I'd love to. I love his playing so much.
believe. Yeah.
Okay, what is the ultimate direction that you follow when you're writing your own songs? Say you have an idea and you're expanding on that idea. What is the direction that you like to go for? How do you make that decision?
Interesting. I just try to develop an idea and then keep it interesting. So um, in writing, I've never.
So the approach comes later after some part comes in the mind.
Yeah, the thought comes. I remember writing a song called Wildfire for Hubert Law's Family album, early
Mm-hmm.
'80s. I was in the car at the time, and so the idea comes to me, and then I there were no iPhones or anything, but I went and called my answering machine at home, sang the
Oh,
idea,
wow.
and now we could just sing it into our phones. But I remember the whole song the entire melody, start to finish, came to me 2 minutes, and so I
Wow.
remember this, and so I just sang it into my machine, and then got home and just figured out what the chords were going to be.
Wow.
But and then other times I have to work backwards, with the chord and then add the melody. So it kind of changes again um,
Right.
from each situation.
Right. That's beautiful. Sometimes I'm traveling by bus or like in my auto rickshaw. In India, we have like auto rickshaws, and I'll
Yeah.
be hearing some honking and we have different kinds of honks, by the way, in India. I don't know. Sometimes it goes like
Wow.
yeah, and then sometimes so I'll
Oh,
be recording
okay.
that. Yeah, and then I'm hearing all these grooves like happening in front of me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's hilarious, but it makes sense.
Right. See, and that's
Yeah,
the
that's how sometimes I build my grooves. Sometimes I get grooves like from honks. Sometimes I would hear some like water dripping from like a water tanker truck.
wow,
Yeah, it's
amazing.
funny.
That, yeah, I mean, it's amazing what sparks inspiration to write a song. Sometimes
Yeah.
the bullet train, the thing is going on at 280 miles an hour or something like that, and you hear tuck 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 tuck, all of a sudden
Yeah.
groove.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I believe in every generation, there is an evolution of sorts in all kinds of fields. But at certain times in history, there is a paradigm shift that happens and has been happening for so many years through our languages, through our culture, and through us, through our artistry, and the gifts that we have, such as contentment, joy, clarity, and so on, and through our music too.
Right.
When I hear you playing, I felt the shift happening so beautifully over the years. And how do you think one can achieve this gradual growth? How does that happen?
Oh, thank you, first of all, and it's it's an organic thing. It's not necessarily something that you work on, but I just think as you grow and mature, your listening habits are different, and your playing habits, and listening to what's going on around you. When when I'm in when I'm playing in the band now, I really try to focus on what every member is doing, and
Hmm.
especially in a trio or a quartet situation, it's easy because you don't have so much to listen to. But I always try to keep the big picture in mind, and then
Hmm.
I think it's just a natural development. When Jaco Pastorius came out, everybody wanted to be Jaco. So I remember just learning everything that he was playing, and just
Yeah.
trying to copy. And then you realize, well, wait a second, there's only one Jaco. So then you
Yeah.
start to kind of veer away and try to get your own voice going. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's
another question now that you talk about the voice. When I do workshops and masterclass, a lot of people come up to me and they be like, I have a huge struggle finding my voice. I can't find my voice. How do you think one can achieve that?
yeah, that's one of the trickiest things to do, because like I never really attempted to have a
To
person,
search or anything?
but
Yeah.
I just wanted to have a good sound, be solid, make some good choices, and just something that was always right for the song. And I
Right.
think in that approach, a voice emerges. But
Right.
um, it's difficult to think, because especially it depends on what kind of music too. So if
Hmm.
you're uh, if you're doing some fast metal, it's going to be that kind of stuff. Or if you're rocking and rolling, or uh,
Right.
I've had a nice balance of kind of pop and R&B, jazz, rock. All the elements that they've kind of like been that I've been working in, and that's been
Right.
fun to just go from one to the other.
Yeah. It's funny, like how was that me?
Sorry, I think that's me. I think I see. Yeah, I don't know how to turn it.
I was like so scared. I was like, was that me? Okay, we're towards the end of the question. That was amazing. Great answers. This is going
Oh,
so good.
pleasure.
I have so many questions here that I have, written out of my own imagination. And I'm trying to see what I can ask you
I
because you've
like
answered pretty
I
much
like
everything.
your studio there. You got some.
Oh, this is like an open space. It's not even a studio. I just moved here like 8 months ago. I haven't seen my parents in 8 months. Can you
Oh,
imagine? Yeah, like after I came back from my Japan tour, I've just been here.
oh my goodness. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
lockdown happened and then I've just been here.
nice. So you're in India at the moment.
I'm in India. I'm in this city called Bangalore.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and
Oh,
my parents live in Mumbai.
oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you can't at the moment you can't travel to see them. Then.
Yeah, but you know what? I just got a good news today from one of my friends who works in the airlines, and he said that from the 25th of May, the flights are working.
Oh, amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
well,
know. I don't know how good that is because it always has two sides. I don't know. Sometimes it can go for a toss, and sometimes it can be good. No idea.
yeah,
Um, like
and
I want to see my parents so badly, but I don't know if I should risk it at this moment because there's, like I said, it can go either way. So I'm just trying to be safe.
right now it's a tricky time because you don't know
Yeah,
you're going to be a airplane full of
yeah,
people and
yeah. It's gonna be crowded. Like now that they've announced 25th May flights are, working, flying. People are gonna just
right.
go there and make a mess at the airport.
Well, I just heard from Chuck Loeb's wife, but by the way, rest his soul, he was one of my favorite musicians ever and people.
Mm.
But his wife came to LA from New York because uh, their daughters, both have had babies in the last 6 months. One just
Oh,
last week, and so she got on one of the few flights, and she said it was the best flying experience ever because there was nobody at the airport, no line,
right, right,
nobody on the
right.
plane, and so
But did they like isolate her for like 14 days or something? Because I think people are
yeah,
doing that.
yeah. When she got to LA, she self quarantined, just to
Huh.
on the safe side, and,
Right.
and mask and everything were required to fly.
Right. Gloves
But
and stuff.
but it's
Right.
going to be interesting when the airlines get back up and running to see what that's going to look like. And
Right, right, right. I'm like so done with this situation. I just wanna go and I miss playing live. I just miss
oh,
meeting people,
I miss it
just
so
going
much.
out in the nature. My dogs are tired at being home.
Right?
I'm sure
I know.
your dog is tired too.
Yeah, my dog. I just put him up, and he, every day he looks at me like, "Come on, when did when did we get?"
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting time to be alive. We should really we should really use this as an opportunity to I
Be
call it a
grateful and
reboot for
thankful for all
yeah,
the things we have. Yeah. Yeah, it made me realize what are the things we miss out on when we are so busy.
right. Yeah,
And
and I realize that I've been so busy that I've never had this much time to spend with like my children and my family.
I
So
know, I can totally imagine. You have two children?
I have twins, a boy and girl,
Wow.
Sarah and Noah. Yeah, and so
How old are they?
they just turned 20.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and and my wife Anita and I have been married for 25 years. But in that time,
Wow.
and in the time that the kids have been growing up, I've always kept a suitcase packed, and I've always been on call to go on tour.
That's like just my father. I have a younger sister too. She plays the lead guitar.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
she's more of a session artist. Like she works for a lot of Bollywood movies in here.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And
Oh,
I'm more to the live performance side.
you-
She's a more shy personality, so she chooses to be in the studio.
right.
Right. So my
Oh,
father always used to have one suitcase ready when we were young. We always used to see him going in and out of the house, to tours
he's
always.
he's a musician, yeah.
Yeah, he's a bass player. Yeah,
Fantastic.
he's my teacher.
Oh, amazing. Well, tell him he did a great job.
He's
I'd
a
love to.
big fan of yours.
Oh,
He
bless you. I know.
loves your playing. Yeah. Yeah. He always used to show me your DVDs, you know. We were not financially very strong at that point of time, but he would borrow CDs from his friends and he would get it and he would play it in like DVD players and he would show me and ask me to pick up your solos, learn all the
Oh,
improvisations and
bless.
everything, study them.
Well,
Yeah.
he's giving my regards. I know
I
the,
will. He'll be so happy.
but when the thing one time I came home from a tour, and the first thing my daughter asked was, "How long are you gonna be home this time?" And it just broke my heart, because you get so used to, and so this
Yeah.
quarantine and shelter in place has been a blessing for me to be with them. Um,
Right, that is beautiful.
most time in their entire lives that we've been together for such quality time.
I know, so nice, so nice. Yeah, in a way it's nice, but then now it's getting a little too much where we're missing working.
Yeah, and again, it reminds us of what's important and the balance in our lives. Uh,
Totally, totally.
so we have to constantly try to figure out how all of this works, and this has given us a time, and I feel so, I pray for those that have been affected in such an adverse way by
How many
this.
years has it been for you professionally working in this industry?
Oh, it's been, oh my goodness, more than 4 decades. When I think about it, it's amazing to think, yeah, since
Yeah.
late '70s, early '80s, I've been pretty
Wow.
busy, nonstop.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. Again, I'm so happy to be
Me
speaking
too.
to you.
Me too. It's great.
Okay, I'm not gonna keep you longer now. We'll just do the rapid fire now. If you could switch to any other instrument, what would it be?
Ooh, great question. I think it would be piano.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, and I tell you
Did you ever
who.
play the piano?
Yes, I mean, and I write. I use it to write, but I recently saw a video where Jocko was playing piano, and he just had these incredible chords, and I thought, oh man, I wish I could do that too. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just such a everything is right there, so it's just such a fun instrument. I think it'd be great to
Yeah, I never played the piano in my life. I would love to though. Yeah. But I'm more inclined towards drums. I always feel
yeah,
like I want to play drums.
yeah.
Can
Well,
you
that
hear that in my playing though? I
absolutely.
think
You're
so.
so
Yeah.
rhythmic. Yeah, I can totally hear that.
Yeah. Like I sometimes tell that, why didn't you teach me drums?
No, you're a drummer. You're already a drummer. And
Yeah.
that was the thing about Larry Carlton. I mean, not Larry Carlton, Larry Graham. Um, when he played, he was in this organ duo, so it was just bass and organ, and so that's why he kind of became the drummer by slapping and
Right.
so
Right.
I thought
Right.
that was great because it was born out of necessity to have the rhythm going.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, as Indians, our time is so strong, anyways, because that's like a part of our culture. So,
Amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What is the worst compliment you've received so far? I'll
That
tell you mine.
you know, I mean, uh, it's funny too because a lot of times I think you almost get used to because you know how you play and then you meet and greet after and everybody comes, oh, that was great, and sometimes a lot of times they'll say, oh, I couldn't hear the bass, or oh, the bass was too low or too thin,
So, yeah,
and so some of those
yeah.
and but fortunately, a lot of it's good.
I remember this one time I had one of my best nights, and after the show got over, this guy comes up to me and he's like, I really like your dress. I'm like, after all the heavy lifting I just did, you like my dress?
you know,
Yeah.
the other thing, Bob James and we were in the, how in Japan they do the autograph table and
Right,
everybody
right, right,
lines up. So
right.
we were in the table, and what people do is they come and hand you a piece of paper usually with their name on it, and then or
Right,
something.
and like a stamp, you
Yeah,
sign on it, and it goes to their house. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we were in line, and we had the biggest laugh because one gentleman came up to us and he handed us the piece of paper and it said, "You suck." You know,
Really?
yeah, but it turns
You
out
meant
that
something else?
but it turns out that his name was Yusik. That and so it was his.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
We were dying because it just he hands the paper and said, "You suck," you know.
Oh shit,
I
that's
said, "I'm
hilarious.
sorry, I'll try to play better
What?
tomorrow."
Oh God. What annoys you the most?
You know, I get annoyed if I'm playing on stage and people aren't listening and they're just kind of just rambling on, and
Right. So
and
annoying.
also kind of in rehearsal just noodling, you know, and you just it just I always say practice at home, you know, but yeah,
I get annoyed if people lose time on stage.
well that's yeah.
I get
I
in my
mean,
head. It's funny, but it's not funny. You know.
no, I mean it's very rare, but if you ever play with a drummer that can't keep up,
Oh God.
that's
Yeah,
annoying.
that's the worst situation.
There was one drummer we played with once, and he'll remain nameless. But every time he went for a fill, he never came back.
On the one.
So it's like everybody was going, "Oh no,
Oh,
there's a fill."
and then sometimes you're like, "Where is the one? I don't know. It's in the air."
If you can't find the one, you are in trouble.
Yeah. Oh my God. I grew up playing with a drummer who plays for John McLaughlin now. His name is Ranjit Barrett. Yeah, yeah. And he's so technical when he's playing. I started playing with him when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. Since
Wow.
then I'm 23 now, and since then I've been playing with him, okay? All these years. And that's why my time is so strong, because I grew up playing with a lot of tabla players and kanjira players, a lot of percussionists, And like I said, it's a part of our culture. So people are really good with like Carnatic rhythms, which is the konako, like the takadimi takita and all that kind of stuff.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I can do that. I can do that and play bass. And that's how I see time signatures as. So for example, if I'm say learning a solo which goes like for me, it's like takadimi takadimi takitata, So
Wow.
I look at it that way. Yeah. For
Fantastic.
yeah, and like the Western musicians would say 5/4. For us, it's takatakita.
Wow. Well, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I just experienced a master class from you.
No.
No, that's awesome. But yeah,
Okay.
listening is such a key part of everything, whether it's musically or just listening in a conversation. It's a
Right.
really. Um,
Right.
I used to always ask questions of musicians that I just work with, and I'd say, "What's the most important thing?" A piece of advice, and even back in Cannibal Adderley, when we used
Yeah.
to open for his band, what's the most important piece of advice you can give me? And most people said, "Listen." I
Listen.
thought that was great, because if you don't listen, then it's like it's a one
You're
way.
not taking anything in.
No,
Yeah.
and you're not growing. So that was really good advice.
Okay. Describe yourself in 4 words.
Wow. I like to be in service, spiritual, loving, and kind.
Hi. That's nice. Okay, this is the last one. Tell us something personal that the whole world don't know about you.
Mm. Well, the reason they don't know is because I haven't said anything about
No,
it. So,
it
so I
could be
can't.
anything like that happens in everyday life or something that you do before a show.
Yeah.
Like everybody has different habits, like
Right.
something
Well,
that they don't know about.
I mean, probably since nobody sees me when I wake up, but every morning when I wake up, I meditate for 20 minutes.
Oh,
And
wow. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
And it's
That's
just it's a perfect way to go from sleep
get your day started. Yeah.
and just completely sit there in silence, deep breathing, and just completely clear my mind and get it ready for the day. So it's a fantastic way to wake up. Um, some people do know that I'm a sort of an amateur magician. And so,
You're a magician?
yes. So
What?
I joined the Magic Castle and the Magic Circle in London, and I love it. It's a great hobby.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I'd love to see some magic
yeah. So
one day when we
okay.
meet.
Let me see. I used to be able to. Let me see if I could show you one. Okay, if you can see that ring, it's on that finger right,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
if I just
But you just change your fingers.
I know that. So here's what I do if I tell you show you the ring. It just
Right.
it's in the no, it's hard to do in front of the camera, but
Right, right.
the I also am a private pilot. I like to fly planes, uh,
Wow.
airplanes, yeah, and
So
that's
when did that happen in between bass playing?
well, when I was one of the things about tagging along with your older brothers, my older brother David got his pilot's license, and so I thought, oh, I think I could do that too. So I got a pilot's license, um, and I was fairly young. And actually, I bought an airplane and was a plane owner and used to fly to gigs, which
Oh
was fantastic,
wow.
So and put the bass in the car and or
That's
just fly
insane.
L.A. to Santa Barbara for lunch, and
Oh God.
yeah. And when my parents lived in San Diego, I'd always fly to visit them. So it's a
Oh,
passion of mine. My father was in the aviation industry, aircraft design engineer, and
oh,
four of us got private pilots licenses.
wow. So cool. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. So
Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for coming on my show once again.
thank
And
you.
take
This is
care of yourself. I hope we meet each other soon after this whole pandemic situation is over.
absolutely. And if you make it to Los Angeles, please let me know because
Totally,
love
totally.
to
I will do that. Thank
hear.
you so much.
Thank you. We'll be in touch. Bye.
Bye.